Lewis and I were identical in nearly every way. We shared the same sandy hair, the same piercing blue eyes, and even the same mischievous grin that drove our parents up the wall. Growing up, we were two halves of a whole, our lives so intertwined that it was impossible to imagine one of us without the other. We did everything together. Whether it was exploring the woods behind our house, playing endless games of basketball in the driveway, or staying up late into the night whispering secrets and dreams, we were inseparable. Even our friends and teachers struggled to tell us apart, and we loved to play pranks, swapping places and watching the confusion unfold. Our bond was more than just physical. It was almost telepathic. We had our own language of glances and gestures, a silent communication that only we understood. It was comforting, knowing that no matter what happened, we had each other. But we weren't just best friends, we were rivals too. There was always a healthy competition between us, whether it was for better grades, faster race times, or who could tell the best joke. Lewis had a natural charm that drew people in, while I was more introspective, preferring to observe and think before acting. Yet, despite our differences, we complemented each other perfectly. As we got older, our interests began to diverge. Lewis became passionate about music, spending hours in his room practicing guitar, while I threw myself into sports, determined to make the varsity basketball team. Still, our bond remained unshaken, and we always found time for our shared adventures. One of our favorite traditions was the annual summer camping trip with our dad. Every year, we would pack up the car and head to the same remote campsite, far away from the noise and distractions of everyday life. Those trips were magical, filled with late-night ghost stories around a campfire, fishing in a clear, cool lake, and hiking through the dense forest trails. It was during one of these trips that we discovered an old, abandoned cabin deep in the woods. The place was a wreck, with broken windows and a collapsing roof, but to us, it was a treasure trove of possibilities. We spent hours exploring, pretending it was our secret hideout, a place where we could escape from the world and be whoever we wanted to be. As the years passed, the cabin became our sanctuary. Whenever life got too overwhelming, we would sneak away, escaping to our secret refuge. It was there that we had some of our deepest conversations, sharing our hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. But everything changed on that cold December night. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, filled with warmth and laughter. We had just finished decorating the Christmas tree, a tradition that always brought our family together. The house was filled with the scent of pine and cinnamon, the soft glow of fairy lights casting a cozy ambience. Lewis and I had been arguing earlier that day about something trivial, who got to put the star on top of the tree. It was a silly, childish argument, but it left a lingering tension between us. We barely spoke during dinner, each of us nursing our bruised egos. The fire started in the basement, in the room where our father kept his woodworking tools. We didn't notice it at first, too engrossed in our own worlds. It wasn't until the smoke alarm went off that we realized something was wrong. My father sprang into action, shouting for us to get out. The smoke was thick, filling the house with a choking haze. Lewis and I were upstairs, and as we tried to make our way down, the flames erupted, blocking our path. Panic set in, the reality of the situation hitting us hard. My father reached me first, his strong arms pulling me through the smoke and flames. I screamed for Lewis, but my voice was drowned out by the roaring fire. I caught a glimpse of him at the top of the stairs, his eyes wide with fear. Our gazes locked for what felt like an eternity, and then he was gone, swallowed by the inferno. The fire department arrived too late. Our house, once a place of warmth and love, was reduced to ashes, and Lewis, my other half, was gone forever. The grief that followed was indescribable, a constant ache that settled in my chest and refused to leave. My mother fell into a deep depression, her vibrant spirit extinguished. She would sit for hours, staring at old photographs of Lewis, her tears flowing freely. My father threw himself into his work, using it as a distraction from the unbearable pain. As for me, I was lost, wandering through life like a shadow of my former self. For a while, it seemed like life might return to some semblance of normalcy. But then strange things started happening. It began with small, almost insignificant occurrences, flickering lights, unexplained hot spots in the house, the smell of smoke with no apparent source. At first, we dismissed them as coincidences, But the incidents became more frequent and more terrifying. The first real tragedy struck about a year after the fire. My mother was alone at home, lighting a candle in Lewis's memory, something she did every day. According to the fire report, it was a freak accident. The candle tipped over, igniting the curtains. By the time the fire department arrived, the house was engulfed in flames. My mother didn't make it out. Her death shattered us. My father and I were consumed by grief, barely able to function. We moved into a small apartment, hoping for a fresh start, but the fires followed us. Next was my father. He was a careful man, meticulous in his habits. But one night, as he was working late in his home office, the apartment building caught fire. The cause was never determined. My father died trying to save the other tenants. I was alone, the last surviving member of my family. The fear and paranoia became my constant companions. I was convinced that Lewis's spirit was behind the fires, seeking vengeance for his untimely death. The thought of my twin brother, once my closest friend, turned into a vengeful spirit was almost too much to bear. I tried to escape, moving from place to place, never staying in one spot for too long. But no matter where I went, the fires followed. I started seeing Lewis everywhere, in reflections, in dreams, in the flickering shadows of candlelight. His presence was a constant reminder of the past, a haunting specter that refused to let me go. One night, I woke up to find my bedroom filled with smoke. The fire alarm blared, and flames licked at the walls. I stumbled out of bed, coughing and disoriented, but there was no way out. The door was blocked by fire, and the windows were sealed shut. I was trapped. That's when I saw him, Lewis, standing in the midst of the flames, his eyes filled with sorrow and rage. He didn't speak, but I felt his anger, his pain. I knew then that I had to confront him, to find a way to make amends. "Lewis," I whispered, my voice choked with smoke and fear. I'm so sorry." His expression softened, the flames around him flickering and dimming. For a moment, it seemed like he might forgive me, but then his face twisted in pain, and the flames roared back to life. I knew I had to do more. "I should have saved you," I cried, tears streaming down my face. "It should have been me. I miss you every day, Lewis. Please, let me make this right." The flames around us seemed to waver, and Lewis stepped closer. I could see the pain in his eyes, the torment that had consumed him. I reached out, my hand passing through the flames, and touched his ghostly form. In that moment, a wave of memories washed over me. Our childhood, the laughter, the shared dreams. I felt his pain, his anger, but also his love. The connection we had as twins, stronger than anything, was still there, buried beneath the anger and sorrow. "I love you, Lewis," I whispered. "I always have. Please, let go of the anger. Let go of the pain." His eyes met mine, and for the first time since the fire, I saw a flicker of recognition of the brother I had lost. The flames around us began to fade, the heat dissipating. Lewis's form grew faint, the anger in his eyes replaced by a deep, abiding sadness. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Tears blurred my vision, and I nodded, unable to speak. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace, a release from the torment that had plagued us both. Lewis's form faded, the last remnants of the fire extinguishing with him. The room was silent, the air clear. I was alone, but I felt a sense of closure, a peace that had eluded me for so long. I knew that Lewis had finally found rest, and that I could begin to heal. The days that followed were difficult, filled with grief and memories, but I no longer felt the oppressive presence of my brother's spirit. The fires had stopped, and for the first time since that tragic night, I felt a glimmer of hope. I still think of Lewis every day,